If we are going to be watering, though, to try to replace what we've lost, we don't want to replace exactly, because if I go back to this map, like say here in Lincoln, it's right on this yellow-green line, yellow-green. It would say we lost a 1/4 inch of water. That 1/4 inch of water is for a reference crop. It's like alfalfa or forage type, grasses. It's not for our turf grasses. So we have to kind of apply a crop coefficient to that. So if we have cool season grass, you want to apply a 60 to 80% correction factor to that number. So if it's 25 or 2,500 of an inch lost over that day, you apply 80%, then it's 2/10 of an inch of water was lost. And it can be a lot lower. Again, if you have shade or things like that, then you can have even lower numbers than that. New weather stations actually can link right to the satellite data, and so they can adjust their output. And so you might see stations that have this EPA water sense. So if you're really trying to save water and lead by example, looking for a controller that can change its water requirements with this EPA water sense is a really, really good way to help become more precise in how you're watering. But, that's pretty high end right there. I'm not assuming many of you are going to do that. So this is the Bill Kreiser front yard way of watering my lawn. I turn the system off. When I see drought, I turn it on, I water the next morning, then I turn the system off again. It is that simple. Like, that is how you water. This is my tall fescue lawn. You can see it's footprinting here. This tree, because those darn tree roots are sucking all the moisture from my lawn. I'm pretty much watering for the trees anyways, it seems like. So it's drying the lawn out. My lawn is telling me the soil's dry, that this tree is probably also dry. So the lawn is indicating to me that the other landscape plants are dry. And so then I go and I'll water that grass. The issue with this is sometimes you forget to turn the system back off, right? So you turn it on that night, it waters at 5 a.m., and then you forget about it, and you drive home from work, then you drive to work, the next day, it waters the next day. So I kind of get around this by, I go into my system, and I have my program set to put on an inch of water, and I do my little catch cans to figure out how many minutes that is for an inch of water, and then I have it never have a start time. So that way, what I do is, instead of I'm going to work at 8 in the morning or 7:30 in the morning, I just go to my controller in my garage, I just push manual, run program, it waters everything with an inch of water, and then it's done. It won't run again until I manually turn it on. And this really is a really precise way of watering, because you're using your very expensive computer called your brain to figure out when to water, and not some little $30 controller. So if you're trying to water, this really is a pretty darn good way of doing it. Yep, so we got chat. Okay, so another thing you can do, looking at soil moisture, they talk about using a screwdriver with a 6-inch shank, as a moisture probe. If you can stick that into the soil and the grass still looks pretty green, you probably have enough soil moisture. You're not worried about it. It's probably going to get you through a couple days. You start trying to stick it into the soil and it's hard to get it in there. That's at least one indication potentially that the water levels in the soil are becoming less and less available. But again, even if you can't get it in the ground, if that grass still looks pretty green, you're going to figure that out. You'll be able to gauge how hard is it to stick it into the ground, and then look at what is the grass telling me visually, because our eyes are very good at perceiving green. So when it starts to go a little bit off color, your eye is going to pick it up, and that's when you want to water the next day, or maybe in 2 days or 3 days. The thing is, I can let this go worse and worse. It's still going to recover. It's not dead. We pushed tall fescue with rain shelters in research plots. 8 weeks past this point, we add water back, and they immediately green right back up. It's really amazing. It's more of that long-term drought of months before those grasses are really going to start to die. You can do things with the soil moisture probes. These are expensive. The golf course people use them. They work really nicely. You may be more reliant to use something like this, where you have to stick it in the ground, dry to wet. These don't tell you anything, so don't waste your money on this. The screwdriver method is much more accurate than just sticking one of these dumb things in the ground. More common now, we're even seeing some of these high-end irrigation controllers. You can embed a soil moisture probe, that's a higher-end, precise one, into your lawn, and then once it hits a certain level, it tells the system to turn on automatically. So that would be the high-tech way of the screwdriver method. So, by doing what we're doing, we're doing what's called deficit irrigating. If we are putting water back, we're just putting back a little bit, and we're hoping that rain is going to re-wet that soil and really bring it to a full level. So that's keeping things consistently dry. It's going to result in less water, less nutrients and pesticides potentially moving. It does require a little closer monitoring, though, right? You have to kind of look at it. How dry is it? Can it get through a day or so? Again, if you're a day late or 2 days late, you're probably fine. But if you ignore it for 3 weeks and it looks really bad and you got dogs running all over it, it may become lethal. So there's my deficit irrigation again. This is to show you, though, how resilient turf can be. This is a putting green where we withheld water on our plots for 6 weeks. You would think that this grass, which is like bright white, is dead. And I did. I thought I was going to be seeding in September. We turned the irrigation on. This is 2 days after we turned the water back on, and so we're seeing even some greening going on. This all was completely white after 2 days before this. This is 12 days later. That's 15 days later. Just absolutely remarkable that this grass looked from being completely dead, golf course putting green, and looks like this in 2 weeks. And so grasses are resilient. They are pretty amazing. We don't have to baby them like we think that we need to keep them alive. So let's finish irrigation up. When we do want to put water onto our turf, we want to make sure that our systems are working well. Know that the nozzles wear out. If a head is not upright and level, it's going to totally mess up the distribution. And we want to make sure we know how many minutes equals an inch of water, or how many minutes equals a half of an inch of water. And then we're going to adjust our run times and change our nozzles and tweak things until we get a nice distribution uniformity of the moisture. So this is the extreme version of that. This is probably some poor grad student going out and measuring with little catch cans on 1 yard spacing, a little bit obsessive. But at least you can figure out, what parts of this research green are dry, which parts are wet, where can I fix my irrigation system to make sure that I have nice uniform distribution of water. So I think we had a couple questions pop in. Any questions all about watering your yard and how to do it without using too much water? We had a question about what to do to remove Bermuda grass from a bluegrass lawn. We could, there's herbicide out there that would probably be the most effective to get rid of the Bermuda grass. Like tenacity would do it, and so would another one. It's a tough one to get the Bermuda grass out of bluegrass because it's a little easier to do the blue from Bermuda grass. But that's something I could talk to you individually about. So any other type of questions about irrigation and watering?